Welcome back to Digital Dwell and Deal. Look, today we're going to talk about AI and how that's going to make house prices just go through the roof. And it's not for the reasons that you think. AI by itself is not going to somehow magically make asset prices appreciate, but everything's about to go up. Housing, stocks, crypto, commodities, anything that's an appreciating asset is about to fly through the roof. And now follow me here because it's not going to go down the trail that you think it's going to go down. Right now, AI is in its first chapter, its early stages, right? So you've probably heard things like AI is not going to take your job, but people that use AI will take your job. That is true for chapter one. Like chapter one is where we're at right now, right? Everybody's got ChatGPT on their phone. People are using AI like Grok or Claude or all these different models. I mean, the average person is using it. And then you have some companies that are using it at a much higher level, getting rid of a lot of their admin and automating a lot of that kind of stuff and implementing in other corners of their organization. You are already seeing the impact of AI taking jobs by all the layoffs that you're hearing about. They may say that it's not driven by AI, but it absolutely is. Salesforce was probably the most transparent about this. Mark Benioff, who's like the CEO of Salesforce, recently announced 4,000 layoffs, right? When asked why, he goes, I simply don't need that many people in the organization anymore. And again, when they asked him to expand on that, he just shrugged his shoulders and he said AI. And that is the first stage of what's about to happen. The job loss is going to be massive. You're seeing unemployment right now already at 4.7%. Mark my words, we're going to be over 10% unemployment. Now, the reason why you're going to see asset prices go up, like why would job loss create growth in asset prices? Well, it's really simple, right? When you're looking at the Fed, the Fed right now is raising interest rates in order to combat inflation, which is true. Like that, they need to keep a lid on inflation. But one of the other jobs of the Fed is to protect the labor market, because if the labor market contracts and people don't have jobs, well, then they're not being productive, and that hits GDP. And then guess what happens from there? The economy starts contracting. So the Fed has to protect the growth of the economy, but also protect us against too much inflation. And what's about to happen is as AI starts wreaking havoc through the job market, there will be less demand for jobs. You're seeing a little bit of this too with new college graduates are having trouble finding entry-level positions in corporate America. Like the white-collar jobs are disappearing because where they would normally go is to areas like data entry, document sorting, like clerical type of work, right? But that clerical type of work no longer exists in the same capacity because AI can do a lot of that stuff. Even like on the mortgage side, some of the vendors we use, when we would give them documentation through their portal, there would be a human being on the other end of it that would go through and make sure that we had everything necessary to take the next steps in the mortgage process. That's no longer the case anymore. You drop the stuff in there, and within seconds, it's all sorted, titled. The person whose job that was, that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe they move to another corner of the organization, but eventually there won't be any more corners for people to hide out in. So as you start seeing unemployment start ticking up, the Fed is going to have no option other than to print money to stimulate the economy, to protect GDP, and to protect jobs, hopefully. And I think it's going to be kind of a futile effort, but they're going to be pumping money into the economy to try to keep it propped up. When that happens, you're going to see asset prices just roar. And you already experienced this once, right? You saw it during COVID, right? The Fed injected way too much money into the economy. And then what happened? House prices went up by 50%. Stock market went up by like 40%. Like all these commodities went up. Crypto went up. Everything went up, right? That's what happens. When the Fed floods the market with money, asset prices start to appreciate. Now, I don't care what you buy. Like, I don't care if you buy stocks or crypto or what your game is. Today, I'm talking to you obviously about housing. The reason why I'm talking about housing is because it just happens to be one of the asset classes that you can get a really large amount of exposure in. And you don't need to have your own capital in order to do that, right? Like if you want to buy $500,000 worth of cryptocurrencies, you need to have $500,000. If you want to buy $500,000 of Apple stock, you need to have $500,000. If you want to buy a $500,000 house, you can do that with $15,000, right? Or even in some cases, nothing, right? Depending on what program you're using. And so it allows you the ability to pick up this asset that's going to appreciate at a really high rate without having a lot of significant investment on your own end, right? That's why I'm telling you, hey, look, get into a house, like, or find shelter, because like this is what's going to happen when the Fed starts printing money. They're not going to be able to stop this time. You see, when you look at COVID, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of this real quick. No, it's not alcohol, it's Celsius, but I was feeling a little parched. When you take a look at what happened during COVID, okay? And you already saw this story play out, right? Fed printed money, everything went up, the prices got out of control. It's now more expensive to buy everything from eggs to your house, right? The COVID injection of money was temporary. Like, everybody knew that. Like, eventually, we wouldn't live in COVID forever, right? Eventually, the world would return to whatever normal environment it was in. Like, that job loss that the Fed was anticipating during COVID, and that we experienced during COVID, everybody knew that those jobs were coming back to the market. This is different. These jobs that are leaving the market, unlike COVID, they're not coming back to the market. Like, now that AI can do the clerical work, there's no world in 5 years where we hire a bunch of people to do clerical work, right? That is going to be replaced by AI. When you start having paralegals that were doing legal work inside of law firms, and now AI can do that work, that paralegal is not going to be employed in 5 years, right? Like, this is going to have reach that's way beyond what people are anticipating. And the only thing that the United States government is going to be able to do, the only thing the Fed's going to be able to do is going to be able to print money in order to stimulate the economy. Now, so when they do that, you're going to start seeing asset prices increase. And this is going to happen pretty fast. Like, this can happen as early as 2026. I think we are going to see 10% plus unemployment. That's 1 out of every 10 people that can't get a job. And the people that are going to be safe are the ones that are insulated because they have assets that are appreciating. So when you're thinking about AI, yeah, it's going to make things a lot more efficient. But I'm warning you here today that AI is going to make everything go up. So buying a house now and getting money in the stock market and investing, like having these types of assets, but housing specifically, buying a house if you don't own one is extremely critical. Like, you got to get your foot in the door. You got to find shelter there, because once this rocket starts taking off, there's no coming back. Like, there will be families and bloodlines that will rent forever. There will be companies that will buy single family housing again. I know that's kind of slowed down a little bit, but companies like BlackRock, they know that this stuff is coming down the pipe. When you start seeing the job loss occur and you start seeing the money printer turn on by the Fed, everyone that has dollars to invest is going to be seeking shelter. And they're going to look for stuff that's directly tied to inflation, right? So they're going to look at stuff like housing that actually does get directly tied to inflation. Look at stuff like gold and silver, which you're seeing rocket right now. Gold and silver is taking off right now because it's afraid of the inflation coming back. So it's front running what it's anticipating. And it's front running the fact that the Fed's about to have to turn the money printer on. And I'm telling you that that's going to happen because of AI. So AI is great. It's making our lives a lot easier. And I think that the big picture of AI is that the world becomes a better place because of it. However, and you can have your own opinion on that, whatever your opinion is. But when it comes to your asset prices, AI is going to make the asset prices fly through the roof. Not because AI is magical, but because of the domino effect that AI is going to have, first hitting the job market, then hitting the Fed to stimulate the economy. And when they stimulate the economy, the only reaction that these asset prices have is to go up. And so today I really want to share with you that AI developing is going to be a separator from those that have and those that have not. And so if you're in the bucket right now where you're have not, let's find a way to get you a house. It doesn't matter if you use me or somebody else, or let's find you a way to get appreciating assets. Take cover, because this is coming. Hope to chat with you guys personally, one-on-one. If you do have more questions on this, you can always ping me. You can always reach out. We can always dive a little bit deeper. But today's warning shot is that, look, artificial intelligence is about to build wealth for people that have assets, and it's going to strip away the possibility of building wealth from those that don't. Thanks for joining me today at Digital Dwell and Deal, and we'll talk to you again soon.